So today marks a special occasion. 75 years of Batman. Oh my god, this stuff is amazing. As you can tell, I am absolutely, completely obsessed with Batman. So I've surrounded myself with all of my Batman stuff to get into the mood to make a video in tribute to the 75th anniversary. I thought for a change, instead of going into maybe my favourite moments or my favourite top 10 animated episodes from the 90s Batman series, which I love, I've decided to look at all the animated Batman movies, which tend to be overlooked thanks to the live-action counterparts. All of the live-action films are awesome. I even have a soft spot for the Adam West movie from the 1960s.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Since they're overshadowed, let's leave the live-action films on their pedestal and look at the animated movies. So here is my top 5 favourite animated Batman movies. 5 because, let's face it, there's not a lot of them. Number 5. The Batman and Superman movie. This movie makes the list purely because of its association with the animated Batman TV series and the Superman TV series, if I'm honest. Okay, this movie doesn't hide its age very well and the animation is pretty poor quality, but if you look past all of that grainy exterior, it's a pretty decent crossover of Superman and Batman. The humour of this movie makes it innocent, kind of, which makes it more endearing than other animated movies that are on this list. And it's also hilarious to see Joker out of his comfort zone of Gotham when he has to go to Metropolis and he's not well known, so he has to carve a new niche, so to speak. So that was pretty interesting to see, and also Joker and Harley are absolutely adorable in this movie.
Hello, Mr. J. I'm Batman. Eat me, eat me, eat me.
I know you're trying to cheer me up, Harley, but you see, anytime I blow $1 billion deal,
It really kills my appetite.
Some of the banter between Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne is hilarious, especially since there's a little bit of a love triangle between those two and Lois Lane, which is really good fun to see, and Lois being confused between the two of which one she likes better was pretty hilarious as well, considering both Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent look very similar in build.
Me? Famous? Well, hardly. I mean, this is Clark Kent. And
I love the Bruce Timm styling in this movie as well. I love all the minimalistic kind of Art Deco kind of style to the visuals. So, yeah, it just harkened back to the 90s animated series of Batman. And that was my introduction to Batman. So, seeing that here was pretty awesome. Number 4. Batman, The Dark Knight Returns. Based on the comic book of the same name, this movie hits all the right buttons that a Batman movie should, but some of them were needlessly pushed, and it wasn't really a very good adaptation of a comic, and, well, there wasn't really much point in making the comic, and it kind of got a little bit mixed up in translation. It didn't hit the right tone for me, but it still kind of had its own identity, and it stayed true to the comic, don't get me wrong, but it was just too close to it, if that makes any sense. Like, if you're going to make a movie based on the comic book, stay true to it, but still, you know, allow it to have its own identity. This movie didn't really do that, so apart from that, yeah, it was pretty decent. It had a lot of shock value to it. Obviously, it has a little bit more of a leeway with what it can do thanks to its rating and the fact that it's not related to the 90s animated TV series at all. Seeing the Joker in a catatonic kind of state was deeply chilling, and then thanks to media coverage of Batman coming back after 10 years, seeing the Joker resurface was chillingly ironic to see, and seeing that part from the comic in the movie, that was a special moment for me. That part was done just right. I loved that. But the rest of it didn't quite hit the right tone for me. Maybe I was just too in love with the comic to really give it a fair chance. But I've placed it on number 4 on the list, so it's not too bad. Number 3. Batman, Under the Red Hood. Based on the Batman storylines, A Death in the Family and Under the Red Hood, this is arguably one of the most controversial animated Batman movies. Personally, the voice acting lets it down. John DiMaggio, all I can hear is Bender or Jake from Adventure Time. That's all I can really hear. When you get voice actors like Mark Hamill, he can differentiate between characters he plays. You can hear little moments, you can recognise that it is him, but you don't end up thinking of other characters he's played while listening to the voice. With John DiMaggio, you do. I'm not saying he's a bad voiceover actor. I love John DiMaggio. He just doesn't do a good Joker for me.
I'm going to need something to wear in a very big truck.
Jake, wake up! It's on a truck!
Whoa!
Aside from that, the design of the movie was really cool. It was very Nolan-esque, and the influence of the Nolan-verse on this film was blatantly obvious. But it's not quite the Batman I grew up with, but it's a pretty interesting and decent movie, and it's a good spin on the story of Death in the Family and Under the Red Hood. Thanks to its rating and the fact that, again, it's not related to the 90s animated movie series even, it had more freedom to do more shocking stuff in it. So, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Number 2. Batman Beyond. Return of the Joker. Now we're in familiar territory. This movie spin-off of Batman Beyond TV series answers a lot of questions a lot of us had in regards to what happened to Bruce Wayne and the Joker and why Bruce Wayne retired from Batman in the first place. Some things were hinted at in the series, but not an awful lot was answered clearly enough. In this movie, although not all of the loose ends were cleared up, it still brought a pretty good, decent story to bring this to a close, if that makes sense. For me, this movie showcased the Joker at his most cruel level, and regardless of its PG rating, there are moments in this movie that are more shocking than some of the R-rated movies on this list. Even if you're not familiar with the Batman Beyond TV series, this is a pretty decent watch, and in my opinion, it has some of the best lines from Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. Some of the best performances from the two come from this movie. In particular, Mark Hamill. You can probably tell I'm a bit of a Mark Hamill fangirl.
It'd be funny if it weren't so pathetic.
Regardless of all that, even if, like I said, even if you're not familiar with Batman Beyond, this is definitely worth a watch, especially if, like me, you loved the animated series from the 90s. Batman Beyond was made by the same people that made the animated TV series from the 90s, so don't just pass it up just because it's not Bruce Wayne as Batman. This is an amazing movie, and I cannot emphasize it enough. You guys really need to check it out if you haven't. And my number 1 animated Batman movie is Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. Of course, what else would it be? This movie is one of my favourite animated movies ever made. It's not only the best animated Batman movie, in my opinion, it's one of the best Batman movies overall. And it treats its audience with respect, it doesn't sugarcoat anything, it doesn't downplay violence or death, and doesn't hold back on shocking its audience with how far it is willing to go to tell the story. The story shows Bruce Wayne at his most vulnerable, and it explores a more emotional side to him, and explores some of his past and what he's not able to let go of. Not to mention we get a hint of Joker's history as well. We see a little hint of what he could have been, or might have been, before he became the Joker, but it still left enough mystery to it so that it didn't ruin anything. Like in movies like The Dark Knight, we're not given a backstory at all, and I love that. That's the way that the Joker should be portrayed. This movie, it's a romantic story as well, but it doesn't kind of tread on the toes of the main plot too much. The film noir to this film is still visually dramatic as it was in the animated TV series, and it lends itself to the story perfectly. And I cannot emphasize this enough. I've already said this over and over. This, in my opinion, is the best animated Batman movie, one of my favourite animated movies of all time. It's difficult to pick which one I like the best, and purely because this movie ironically treats its audience with respect and treats them like adults, whereas the Batman film that came out around the same time, Batman Forever, that one was definitely more child-friendly, ironically, and that was the live-action film. So I'll probably return to these movies eventually at some point, and let's face it, that's an inevitability. For now, I'll leave you with my usual outro. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative. Bye.